Hello, welcome back to Tech Ambrosia livestream. Hope everybody had a good week. It's been an interesting one for me. Obviously I didn't stream last week. We'll talk about it in a minute. It's a little heavy, but I hope everybody enjoyed the Halloween video. I had a real blast making it this year. It was quite fun to test like long-standing myths in the computing space. It was a good time. I got to try out some photography techniques that I haven't done yet, or some videography techniques I haven't done yet, like slow motion. How cool is that? Slow motion shot of me pulling a graphics card out of a slot. It's pretty great. Anyway, hello. Welcome back to the stream. Let's see who is here. I see we had some... Everybody loves it when I do a NetBurst episode. We've got Ryzen 9 3900 XT with the first message as NetBurst. Corey Flammer says, I just bought an Asus P4T. Well, interestingly enough, I've got one right here. Well, the HP OEM version at least. Ryzen 9 says, socket 423 is underrated. Yeah, I don't know if it's underrated. Who do we have in the chat? We've got Ryzen 9, hello. Corey Flammer, hello. Dave from Dave's Vintage Apple Tech, hello. Welcome to the stream. Also, Eric's Edge is here. Hello. Welcome back. Garth Beagle, welcome to the stream. Good to have ya. HC is back. Welcome back. Good to have ya. So yeah, let's take a brief look at what we're dealing with today on the bench. Yay, all my cameras actually worked. Oh, that's so blown out. Let's see if I... Hey, there we go. This is an HP WMTA, which is the HP OEM version of an Asus P4T, basically. It's got some stuff in it. Well, let's go over what's in it. It does have onboard audio. It's I think it's Intel Azalea. I don't know. I couldn't get the drivers for the audio, honestly. I tried tracking down drivers for this thing, and it's been an interesting journey. This is, of course, yes, you are correct. This is socket 423. This is I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. I know it. Because I call it Willamette, but I think the actual pronunciation is Willamette. I think. I don't know. Is it Willamette or Willamette? I guess I was thinking about this earlier this morning while I was setting up, and I'm like, is it Willamette? Is it Willamette? And like, it's got to be Willamette, right? Like, it's not a small Willem Dafoe. It's not a Willamette. So, stuff we've got in the machine. Obviously, I have a big fan here to cool off the graphics card. That graphics card looks a little weird if you've seen graphics cards of this era. This is AGP Pro. Let me pop this off of here. You can have a look at it. That is an AGP Pro slot. This is not an AGP Pro graphics card, surprisingly, despite what it is. Shout if you know it. It's a very distinctive heatsink. Shout if you know the graphics card. But I thought I'd start out with it because it's a weird one, and I'm going to actually look at it in an upcoming video where I use this and an Athlon Thunderbird that I have as competing circa 2000-2001 workstations. I think it'll be a fun video. Well, maybe it'll be a fun video. The reason I haven't made it is I'm not totally sure how to make it fun. How do you talk about workstations and make them interesting? Anyway, I have the hardware. I want to show it off and like show what it looks like to use a workstation in 2001. But that's not this video. We are just going to take a look at this thing, because I plugged it in this morning. Did some troubleshooting on it. It does work. It is fully functional as far as I can tell, other than not being able to get the onboard sound to work. I'm instead using a Sound Blaster Audigy for sound, and I've got a period correct 3COM 3C 905C PCI fast Ethernet adapter. So it's 10100 fast Ethernet. So let's see if anybody guessed the graphics card. Do you have anybody who's guessed the graphics card? What do y'all think it is? Everyone's just saying hi to each other. Hello! My chat is so congenial. Y'all are so friendly. Oh, Ryzen 9 says SpeedSys is going to be nice. Well, here's the thing. We're not running DOS on this thing, although I could pull out one of my DOS SD cards and run SpeedSys on it. I'll do that for you, Ryzen 9. I know that's your favorite part. George Z88 says, hello, welcome to NetBurst. Yeah, this is the first one. This is the original Pentium 4. So I just have this heatsink. I'm gonna commit a cardinal sin. I just have this heatsink dropped onto the Pentium 4 because this mounting system for this heatsink scares the ever-loving bejesus out of me. This thing, you can probably see this little metal tab. There's another one on the other side here that you can't quite see because of perspective, but this thing is supposed to clip into these plastic clips that go into the motherboards with, guess what? Push pins. It's the first instance of the Intel push pins, and these things are like, I managed to pick up this heatsink, but it is in not amazing shape. The push pins are not in great shape. I don't trust it to actually hold the heatsink in place. And if I actually install the clips, let me show you the clips. These are the clips here. These things are awful. This is the side that faces out. So if you put this in, this one would go like over here. You can see where it would clip in. It would kind of stick into that little lip on the cooler. And then I have no idea how you get these things off once they're installed into the motherboard. And I don't want to destroy this motherboard trying to get these stupid cooler clips off. It doesn't seem to be affecting the performance of the CPU, just having it sitting on here with a little bit of pressure and some thermal paste, so hopefully it's fine. But like, the cooler is just awful. What a terrible design. Oh boy. And then of course, you know, the other weird thing about Willamette, whatever, is of course the RAM. I'll take out a stick of RAM so y'all can see it, because this is probably the only time you've ever seen it in your life. I know it's the only time I've seen it in my life in front of me. But this is RDRAM. This is Rambus. I have two 256 meg sticks in here. It is PC800 Rambus, so it's 400 megahertz DDR, and of course it's Rambus, so it's an 8-bit wide bus. It is a wild thing. Single-sided. Yeah, you can see. I don't know if you can see where's the warning message on it? There it is. You can just see it. It's embossed on the edge here. If I can get this thing to focus. Come on. There we go. Warning, hot surface. Good old Rambus. Good old Rambus. Just a real debacle when Intel moved to Rambus RAM for this thing. It was expensive. At some point they had to like, come on, focus. At one point Intel had to like give away RAM with Willamette Pentium 4s. And like that was the only way they could get people to like buy into the platform. It was so bad. And they signed this deal. They signed this deal with Rambus that they couldn't use. Excuse me, they couldn't use any other DDR RAM technology, for X number of years while they were under contract with Rambus. So like that's why it took them so long to make, a DDR or DDR2 Pentium 4 board. They were under contract. They at least were able to negotiate, like, can we at least make SD-RAM boards for the Pentium 4? And, like, of course they were able to negotiate that. But we all know, or I guess maybe we don't all know, but Pentium 4 really doesn't like SD-RAM. It really, really likes to have more memory bandwidth than SD-RAM has to offer. So the SD-RAM chipsets, like the 815, not great. 815, was it 820? I don't remember, but not great. It's not a great time running a Pentium 4 on SD-RAM. So anyway, talk. Has anybody guessed? Anybody guessed the graphics card? We've got Clardon, hello, welcome. Good to see ya. Who do we have? It's it's Willamette. Thanks, Garth. You just write out Willamette in quotes. Thanks. Corey, this is an HP. Where is it? It should be here. Oh, you can't see it. It's an HP WMTA. WMTA. It's basically the HP OEM version of the Asus P4T. So, this graphics card. No guesses, looks like. We've got one guess for a Voodoo 3000. I think that means a Voodoo 3 1000, 2000, 3000, 3500. So we've got one guess for a Voodoo 3, one guess for a GeForce 2 MX. We've got... Corey says, I have a Thermaltake Indigo Orb for mine. It uses those clips. Yeah, the clips are awful. The clips are awful. Those orbs, though, I used those orbs back in the day. They were great coolers. Great coolers. Razin9 says, no, not Rambus. Yeah, okay. So nobody knows what the GPU is. This is one of my prized possessions. This is, as with a lot of my prized possessions, it's terrible. But it's terrible in a special way. It is a graphics card using a chipset from IBM. Yes, that IBM. The IBM... The IBM that made the PS2 Model 80 behind me. That IBM. Same IBM. They made a graphics chipset. They made a couple of graphics chipsets back in the day. Entirely for workstations and for, like, oil and gas visualization. Like, they were competing, or trying to compete with Silicon Graphics for, like, super high-end 3D. So these were OpenGL cards, workstation cards, server cards. See if anybody... Yes! Garth! Garth says FireGL. It is the FireGL 2. This uses the IBM RC1000 chipset. RC1000 and GT1000 chipset. I think there are 3 chips on this thing. If you look at the back... I haven't taken the heatsink on this thing off yet. I'm not brave enough. If you look at the back, there's 2. There's 2 chips on this. You can see pretty clearly. We've got a cluster of FSMD capacitors up there at the top. Right? And then there's that diagonal cluster at the bottom. So we've got 2 chips on here. One is the GT1000, one is the RC1000. The rasterizing controller and the geometry transform controller. There we go. So yeah, this is, and it's one of the cards I'm going to take a look at in my workstation battles. I have a couple of old workstation cards. It's kind of my kryptonite to collect old workstation cards. And I've got a few. I've got some. I've got a Wildcat. I've got a couple of Wildcats actually, from 3D Labs. Those are beautiful looking cards, I gotta say. And again, like, their performance isn't amazing. Mostly these cards got squeezed out of the market as soon as NVIDIA made the GeForce. Basically, once they made the professional version of the GeForce, like, they got professional drivers and certifications and called them Quadros. Basically, it was all over for the specialty workstation graphics card manufacturers. But I have a couple of them, and I'm looking for more. Every day I'm looking for more. But I'm going to show a bunch of those off in the video that I do about these workstation boards. But yeah, AGP Pro. This card is not AGP Pro, surprisingly. The 2 Wildcats that I have are AGP Pro. And yeah, I've got an Athlon XP, not Athlon XP, Athlon Thunderbird board that is also AGP Pro, so we'll see how it compares versus the mighty Willamette. I'm just going to alternate the pronunciation because I don't know what it's supposed to be. So I have this cooler on backwards so that this fan blows air onto this chipset heatsink because this does get pretty warm. Then of course this giant fan here is mostly cooling the FireGL because it also gets quite warm. It's a 180 nanometer process. There's two GPU chips on there. It gets pretty warm. It's pretty toasty. But I think I've probably waffled enough about this thing, so let's fire it up and see it work. I've spent the morning putting Windows 2000 on this thing, so we'll start with the default boot. Oh, right. What chip? What Willamette? I have two. I own two of them. I have a 1.7 gigahertz that I'll be showing off in the upcoming workstation video, because I think it competes a little bit better against the 1.4 gigahertz Thunderbird I have. But the one we're going to look at today is a little more painful. It is the 1.3. It is the one that's actually in the thumbnail for this video. We are looking at the 1.3. So 256K level 2 cache, 400 megahertz bus. It's a 100 megahertz quad pumped. Intel was very proud of this bus architecture when they came out with it. And to be fair, they've used it for a long time. I think its distant relative is still being used today. I think possibly they may have stopped using it with 10th gen. I think they may have moved to a different bus architecture, but like, you know, basically they took this quad pumped bus architecture and like pushed it all the way out through to today, almost. It's quite interesting. So, let's do this, shall we? Let's do this. Let me flip you all over to the capture card. That is the wrong one. Oh yeah, here we go. This is the one we're looking at. This is the thumbnail on the stream. This is exactly the processor we are looking at today. That's what's under that heatsink. So let's get everything fired up. That screen is a bit blacker than I thought it would be. Hopefully my capture card has not taken a dump, but let's fire it up. Got my little red button. FireGL 2. Oh yeah. Gareth Pentium is so hot right now. Yeah, it is. It's warming up. Tima says, hopefully not Fire Reality. It does get warm. It does get warm. So I just used an ISO I have for Windows 2000 to like auto installs all the updates, all the final updates for the OS upon initial install. But yeah, Windows 2000. You are not hearing, I don't think you are hearing the audio output, because I'm pretty sure I forgot to put that on the right channel. Hang on. Oh, where did I put that? Oh no, capture card is on channel 1. Did y'all hear the wonderful Windows 2000 boot up sound? Can I take a peek at Task Manager? Absolutely. We're gonna take all the peeks at this machine today. Sure thing. Let me get my keyboard and mouse over here. And let's just using this through OBS. It's fine. It's fine. No biggie. Let's Task Manager. There you go. We've got a bunch of stuff installed. So we're looking at 106 megs or so resident out of the 512. Not terrible though. 80 megs of that is cache. 80 megs of that is just cache. So, good old Windows 2000. 40 megabytes of RAM in use. Love it. What else we got here? Pentium 4, the room heaters of the early 2000s, says George C88. Yes, indeed, indeed. I don't have my heat on this morning. This thing's been fine for that. So let's see what everybody's saying here. Jack68K, oh dear, IBM made graphics chipset. Yes. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Timo says, I had my first PC. It was an Aptiva 486DX266. Nice. Nice. Aptivas weren't bad. Jack68KX asks, what workstation did IBM make for that to go in? That's a good question. I don't actually know. This is circa 2000. The FireGL2 is about year 2000-ish, hence it being on the same process node as the Pentium 4, as Ryzen 9 was pointing out. And yeah, it is. They use the same node as the Coppermine Pentium 3. It's a lot of CPU to fit on that die. Timo asks, was the Pentium 4 as hot as an old Athlon XP 1800 plus? Yeah, kinda. The later Athlon XPs, you know, once AMD really started pushing them up to like 2.2, 2.4 gigahertz, they used a lot of power and they generated a lot of heat. They weren't really all that much more efficient than the Pentium 4s, you know. This is coming from me, who's an AMD fan. They were more efficient, but not like a ton more efficient. As far as like comparing the Willamette with like a Thunderbird, they're pretty comparable. I think the Thunderbird was lower in TDP, but not by a ton, I don't think. It's been a while. I apologize. I haven't gotten all of my facts in order for this video, like with the comparison to the Athlons. That'll be for the actual video. Jack says mem usage, lol. Yeah, well, I mean, it's using 100 megs, and it says here, you know, 80 megs of that is cache, so that's all disk cache. So, not too bad, actually. 25 megs resident. Garth says, there's something about that Win2K font. Yeah, it's nice. There's a nice place to be. I miss Windows 2000. This was my favorite Windows. Bar none. My favorite. I grew up on my 486. I've told this story a bunch of times, but like my first PC that was all mine, that I could mess with, and you know, that was not so old that it didn't make any sense to mess with it, was my 486. And I was able to upgrade that thing from a 33SX all the way up to an AMD, you know, 133 5x86. 5x86. And I had Windows 95 on it. It came out just after I started messing with it, and I snagged myself a copy of it. And that was my first machine. You know, that was the one that I really stuck my brain into that version of Windows. I nested in that for many years. I got really used to how Windows worked, you know, how Windows 95 worked, and then you know Windows 2000 comes along and it's like Windows 95, except it's fast. Well, once you boot it, it's nice and quick. It's speedy. It's zippy. Your mouse cursor finally runs at 60 FPS instead of 20. Incredible. I loved this OS. I loved this OS so much. I hung on to Windows 2000 until I literally could not play a game I wanted to play. I don't remember which one it was. But I tried playing a game on it, and it refused to run. So I finally had to upgrade to Windows XP to play. I wish I remember what game it was. But yeah, I ran Windows 2000 for a long time. As long as I possibly could, just holding out, sticking with the Windows 2000. Oh, Trina says, by the way, if you need any more RAM bus memory, hit me up. Okay, good to know. Yep, Timo says only one core. That's right. This is pre-hyperthreading. This is, you know, it's Northwood. Northwood introduced hyperthreading, right? Like halfway through Northwood's revisions. There were even some Prescott cores that didn't have hyperthreading. It was weird that the CPUs that Intel added hyperthreading to, once they developed it. But yeah, this is well before hyperthreading. So we've got one core, one physical, one logical, no hyperthreading. that pipeline, that 20-stage pipeline, she gon' clear a lot. Oh god. This architecture, NetBurst is just such a... It's not my favorite. I'm really glad I own this though. This Willamette. I'm glad I have it because it's something of historical significance. You know, like this was the start of, I guess, the start of the end of the Pentium era, really, right? Like the Pentium 4 was the last top of the line CPU Intel made that had the Pentium name. And it was Intel trying to do. I'm just watching Task Manager as the memory usage slowly creeps down. Like, what are you doing? You have 90 megs of memory usage, and 80 megs of that is cache. What the heck are you actually running? Windows. It doesn't seem right that it can run in 10 megs of RAM. But you know, Pentium 4 and NetBurst was when Intel they kind of got like a bee in their bonnet, where they wanted to, like, I don't know what they had something to prove, that's for sure. They had something to prove, and they wanted to, like, push the envelope of CPU design. And of course, you know, the only thing they had was x86 for an instruction set architecture. So they did it with, you know, Pentium Pro having the weird, you know, second die of level 2 cache. They did it with obviously with NetBurst. Even the original Pentium, having its pipelined floating point unit, that was Intel addressing some of the concerns from like the RISC crowd that x86 was just, you know, it's never going to be fast enough to compete in the high end, you know, the high end computing market, because it just, like, its floating point performance wasn't good enough. Well, then Intel added the pipelined floating point unit in the original Pentium, and then you got the speculative execution and out of order execution in the Pentium Pro, Pentium 2, Pentium 3. And then you had this weird thing where they decided to take, you know, that fairly compact and efficient Pentium 3 pipeline and just pull it out to 20 stages and just, like, damn the torpedoes. We're just gonna, you know, every time we have a cache flush, it's fine. We're gonna try and minimize them with our, you know, with the TLB buffer. Instead of an L1 instruction cache, we've got a translation look-aside buffer, so we can kind of predict where our branches are going to land. Like, it didn't work, obviously. Like, we think of hyperthreading as like a feature now, right? Like, you get some free performance out of your CPU, but basically it's hyperthreading and SMT is a conceit that these CPUs that we have now have pipelines that are so long that you cannot keep them saturated with normal computing. You have to run 2 logical cores for each pipeline in order to keep them saturated. And that was what they figured out with Northwood and the hyperthreading. Oh wait, turns out when you make your pipeline stage that long, it's bad. Turns out it's bad. HC says, shocked it hasn't crashed yet. This thing's been rock solid. Like I said, I've been setting this up all morning, and it's given me no issues. Zero issues. So let's give it some issues. Let's run GLQuake on it. Let's start with the issues. I apologize for the darkness on this, because, you know, it's the classic, you know, 3D game doesn't run at the right gamma settings because CRTs aren't a thing anymore, kind of thing. I've got that fixed for Quake 3, so we'll take a look at that in a minute, but, like, it's just smooth. It's just smooth. This, of course, is mostly the FireGL. this is not the Pentium 4 is not being stressed by this. Right? Like let's try map start, and then we'll time demo. Demo 1 gets fairly quick, right? Like that's all right. It's not terrible. This thing. I'll show you in a minute why I'm running GL Quake as our first demonstration. So there we go. We got a lovely 57 FPS. This is at 640 by 480 default settings. GL Quake, you know, asks for 16-bit color. The FireGL can only run in 32-bit color, so we're looking at, you know, 640 by 480 by 32-bit color, basically. Which is, you know, it's not terrible, but we're looking at like, that's like a Voodoo 1. You know, Voodoo 2 would just stomp on that 60 FPS at 640 by 480. That's not amazing. But again, like it's not a gaming card. This is a workstation card. I don't have a copy of GPU-Z on here that actually detects it correctly. I grabbed one of my older copies of GPU-Z and it was just like, I don't know what it is. Blank entries for everything. Thanks. Let's do DXDiag. So there's a reason I have 3 OpenGL games on my desktop there. And that reason is if we go over to the display tab here in DXDiag, you can see we have no acceleration for anything. This is an OpenGL card only. But there you go. Diamond FireGL 2. This was at the height of the madness around Diamond and S3. So S3 and IBM formed this company called FireGL. That's the name of the company, was FireGL. And they S3 was in the process of gobbling up Diamond Multimedia, the board manufacturer, the AIB. So you get this thing, which is it's an IBM chip. The BIOS, if you notice, when I booted the machine, said S3, and then it's manufactured by Diamond, and this is all just this is the FireGL, you know, corporation. Eventually, this got rolled into a company called Sonic Blue, which existed for, I think, less than a year, and then ATI bought them. ATI just bought the whole Sonic Blue ball of wax, including the FireGL company assets, name, you know, branding, and that's where you get the ATI FireGL cards that are, you know, rebranded Radeons. That's how that happened. This was a weird time. I had a bunch. I had a bunch of Diamond cards back in the day. Diamond was a great AIB. It'd be like, this would be like if how would I even describe it? Because, you know, S3 was like not a fantastic company. They were making weird decisions back then when they bought Diamond, but it'd be like NVIDIA buying EVGA or something, or NVIDIA buying this is probably a bad a bad comparison, but they'd be like NVIDIA buying, you know, Gigabyte. Just like, we're gonna grab you and we're gonna make you, you know, our company, except like if NVIDIA was also on their way down the toilet at the time. It was a weird time. Why did you guys do that? I just don't understand. I think it was honestly to buoy the company, because they were burning money on like the Savage project, the Savage 4, the Savage 3D, Savage 4, the Savage 2000 at the time. Like they were just, S3 was just burning money trying to make a competitive 3D graphics accelerator. And I think they bought Diamond just to buoy their finances. 3DFX bought STB, which is a similar thing, where you have a graphics card manufacturer who buys one of their AIBs. And I think for 3DFX they did it so that they'd have a manufacturing channel. You know, S3 didn't necessarily need Diamond, but they did kind of the same thing by buying Diamond, which, you know, as we know, this worked out great for both companies. S3 and 3DFX both, you know, had absolutely no problems after they bought their AIPs. So yeah, that's what this weird conglomeration of parts is. This is a Fire GL2. Garth says, glad I got out of Diamond when I did. I'm so sorry you were there. I imagine it was a madhouse back in the day. Just reading the chat here. That's some Muro Pechetti videos where they fried eggs using Athlon XP. Yes. Famously, prior to the Athlon 64, AMD's Athlon CPUs, like their K6 didn't do this either, but it didn't matter quite as much because K6 just didn't run as hot. But the Athlon, the original Socket A Athlons, didn't have any thermal management. If you ran an original Athlon without a heatsink, it would just bake. It would just bake. I kind of want to try, like, if anybody watched the Halloween video that I did last week, I tried that with a Ryzen, the Ryzen 5, the 1600 that I was testing earlier. I ran it without a heatsink to see what would happen. And, you know, it doesn't have amazing thermal management, but, you know, it got up to 110, 112 Celsius and turned off. Just fine. Clicked the heatsink back on, it booted right up. It was okay. The old Athlons didn't have that. There were quite a few videos going around at the time. I don't think there was like a chip gate or anything about it, but you did have like videos going around of people like, you know, pulling the heatsink off of an original Athlon and just like going up in smoke, like literally like flames and smoke. It was a wild time. Keep those heatsinks. And I did a bunch of testing of my Socket A Athlons, probably 2 years ago now, and sadly, my best Athlon 1000 died that way. I put the heatsink back on it. I didn't check how the heatsink was mounted, how securely it was mounted. Turned out the fan cable had gotten in underneath it, so it was just tilted off of the die ever so slightly. Baked it alive. Just died. Took like 30 seconds, and it was just gone. I'm like, why is this thing locked up? Then I smelled it. Like, oh no. I know what that is. That's magic smoke. That's not supposed to smell that way. But yeah, this thing has been just rock solid all morning. It's been great, actually. It's not fast. I'll say that, it's not fast. I did my initial setup using my 1.7 to try and like ease my pain as much as possible. But yeah, we're getting the full pain this morning or this afternoon with the 1.3. So we know it can't do, the GPU can't do any DirectX. So you might ask why I have 3D Mark installed. That's because, well, I want to run through a couple of these OpenGL games just to give you an idea of what we're looking at as far as performance with the Fire GL2. Bear in mind, circa year 2000. So this is after the GeForce was released. So here's Quake 3. I did the gamma fix in Quake 3 so you can actually like see what it is. But we are running 640 by 480, of course 32-bit because it's Fire GL. All settings on high, trilinear texture filtering. What do you think we get for a benchmark? I ran this earlier, I don't remember what I got, but let's see what we get. So this is going to be com underscore max FPS, so we'll turn that off. There's no maximum to our frame rate. Time demo is enabled, time demo 1. And then we're going to demo. This is the Quake 3 demo, so I don't have demo 4. But I've got demo 001. So we'll do that one. Here we go. So it's not terrible, right? Like, the performance is acceptable, you know, for playing Quake 3. And of course, it's 32-bit color, so it looks fantastic, right? Like, all the alpha effects, all the blood splatter and smoke and stuff, looks great. You know, especially if you're coming from, like, I don't know, a Voodoo 2, you know? 32-bit color rendering like this looks fantastic. And it does do a really good job with texture filtering, I will say that. Like, all the textures I've seen looked really, really nice. So, this should tell you something. We got 46.1 FPS in Quake 3 versus the 57 we got in GL Quake. This is not a gaming card. This is not a gaming card. Texture mapping is not really its forte. It's designed to push polygons. But we get a little bit of benefit, I think. I don't know if Nathan's made it into the stream yet. Probably not. But he would know better. I think there was geometry processing built into the FireGL 2, like really primitive geometry processing. And of course, Quake 3 will use geometry transform engines that are present, that are OpenGL compliant. So like it was one of the only games at the time that actually used the GeForce's, you know, transform and lighting, hardware transform and lighting engine. The whole point of the GeForce, right, was you got a hardware TNL, and the only game that really used it was Quake 3. For a long time. For a long time. It was kinda... Hardware transform and lighting was kind of RTX. It was a little bit of RTX back in the day. But NVIDIA was really, really... Boy, they were super unhappy with 3D effects. They really wanted 3D effects dead. So they pulled out all the stops to kill that company. And they did, and then they bought them. So that's Quake 3. 640 by 480 again. And then of course Serious Sam can run in DirectX or OpenGL. And it is smart enough to detect that we have no DirectX acceleration, and it loads up in OpenGL. I don't know if anybody's getting any game audio out of this. I have no idea. I don't have my audio mirroring set up. But, good old Serious Sam. Serious Sam runs pretty well. Hey, Nathan is here. Hello! Hello, hello. And he says, yeah, it has transform lighting. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought the GT1000 was the transform, the geometry engine on this one. Sounds good. Have a good one, Big Bad Biologist. It's good to see you. I caught your stream earlier. I was glad to see you add composite to that 2600. It looked real good. Game audio is audible but low, but that's fine, so we want to hear you anyway. Thank you, Charlotte. I appreciate it. Good, I'm glad it's coming through. I figured out my problem with piping game audio into the stream, so that's cool. But yeah, you can see, like, there's no, like, Z fighting issues in the background. Like, this is a high-end OpenGL card, right? Like, this is way more, way more render quality than you need to play games, right? Like, that's why this is not a gaming card. Unfortunately, I don't have any, like, workstation apps on here to test with. That's gonna be for the workstation video. I've got a line on, like, an old version of Maya and a couple of other things, AutoCAD, stuff like that, that should run quite nicely on this FireGL as well as my Wildcats. But anyway, now you've seen our 3 OpenGL games. This motherboard, let me quit the game so we don't have a bunch of music in the background. This motherboard, the HP WMTA, shipped in the HP Vectra workstation VL800. And there were 2 graphics cards options for that workstation, neither of which was a FireGL. The base video card for that workstation was a Matrox G450. not surprising. Matrox was really big in the business space, right, for graphics cards. But the optional accelerator, the optional graphics card, was a GeForce 2 GTS. Now, I don't have a GeForce 2 GTS, but the wonderful Nathan from Pixel Pipes donated quite a lovely card to the channel a while back. It's been in my collection now for over a year, and I'm so happy that he did it. I'm never getting rid of this card, Nathan, because it's just too darn cool. We've got a GeForce 256 DDR. So this should make things go a little bit faster when it comes to Quake 3 or Serious Sam or, you know, 3D Mark. So let's throw this in here and do some gaming on the Pentium 4 the way it was meant to be played. Let's flip y'all over to the desk. There we go. Lovely. That is just a taste of what I'll be looking at with the workstation roundup video. I also just kind of wanted to know if my FireGL actually worked. It's been a while since I tested it. There we go. There she is. That is a certified big chungus. The size of that thing. It is technically a 2-slot card. This was meant to go in workstations with a lot of airflow. There you go. FireGL 2. Copyright 2000. One of the cards I'm more proud to have in my collection. Although this one is also something I'm very proud to have in my collection. I don't think I'll ever own a GeForce 2 GTS, but, you know, got a GeForce 256 DDR. It's pretty darn good. It's not quite the same, but it's, I think, more historically significant. There we go. Reconnect the video. Alright, fire this baby up. See what she do. This I haven't tested this. I know this card works. It has been living up there. You can't see where I'm pointing, but way up here off frame. It's been living in my AGP test bench for the last year, maybe 14 months, which I feel bad about, but at least it's been safe. I can't say that for all of my cards. Alright, so let's get you all over to the desktop again. There we go. Fire that up. There we go. Resource conflict. PCI network controller. Well, let's reset it then. Gotta love old computers, right? Come on. Resource conflict. Incredible. Come on. This BIOS is the worst. It is so slow. Hello! Ian Scott, how you doing? We are booting up an old Willamette? Willamette. I'm going to pronounce it wrong for probably forever. Pentium 4. Original Pentium 4. Windows 2000. We'll need to install drivers. I haven't installed the drivers for the GeForce, but I've got them on here, ready to go. Forceware, or no, I think it's Detonator. I think it's still Detonator at this point. Detonator 45.13 or something. Yeah, I thought Charlotte says, ooh, original GeForce. That's a real piece of history. Yeah, I was incredibly humbled when Nathan gave it to the channel, and it is gonna stay here forever, because that is super cool. Super cool. So let's go in our installs folder, drivers. There we go. 45.23. Let's get those drivers installed. Get all our colors back. Now hopefully this doesn't do the same thing that like version 81 does, where it sets a refresh rate that's like, who even knows, like 175 Hertz or something? Restart now. Let's go. Let's live dangerously. Have to plug it in using the DVI cable if it sets a dumb refresh rate. Well, it shouldn't sit here on the BIOS for that long this time. Yeah, see? It was the resetting the configuration data, having it go through all the PCI enumeration again. This chipset's not fast. This chipset is not fast. Ryzen 9 wants a speed sys. Yes, I can do a speed sys. I've got I've got an SD card with DOS on it. Actually, I think I've got it. My little SD card toaster. I have my slot 1 card. We'll run that next. Because this should actually like do okay with VGA stuff. I don't think the FireGL does super great with VGA. But let's see. We've got drivers in. Looks like everything is okay. We're back to our 800 by 600. We're at 16-bit color now instead of 32, but that's fine. Come on. I said okay. I didn't change any settings though. Let's see what GLQuake does here. Still dark, of course, because it's the whole gamma issue. But if we start time demo 1. I misspelled that, didn't I? Time demo. Yeah, Tim demo. We're gonna do a Tim demo. This is not the Tim Traveler channel. Was the FireGL holding us back? Or was it something else? Well, look at that. 60 FPS. That actually, I think, is probably VSync. Like, we've probably got VSync turned on by default. Because, of course. Let's... Settings, advanced. Can I turn it off here? You can let me. OpenGL. Buffer flip mode. Nope. Vertical sync. Always off. Apply. Make sure we do that for more Direct 3D. Nope. Okay. I guess we'll find out if we can do that for Direct 3D. Okay, let's try that again. 57 FPS to 60 FPS shouldn't be the correct answer. Try that one more time. Not on a GeForce. Let's go to the start map and we'll do time demo. I spell it correctly this time. Demo 1. That's more like it. That's more like it. Did you miss that? 331 FPS. 331 FPS. I bet it was VSync with the FireGL as well. We were stuck with VSync. Although it's not a fast card, so I don't think we were too far behind VSync. I'll run it one more time, so you know, don't blink. But there's our time demo. That's it. 331 frames per second. It's a little faster, just a smidge. Let's see what Quake 3 does. Like I said, this thing has been rock solid. So, settings, it resets your texture detail, so I'll turn that back up, but we're at 640 by 480, 32-bit. Trilinear, so this is the same settings as the FireGL. This is going to be a bloodbath. This is going to be a bloodbath. So, COM max FPS. Turn that off. Time demo. You'll notice that, you know, the video output's a little more smeared than the FireGL. Like, the FireGL has a really solid DAC on it. And, you know, the VGA output from it looks phenomenal. Nice and crisp. Not so much on the GeForce. We're dealing with a consumer DAC at this point, and it's not quite as nice. But I think you'll probably not mind. Let's do demo 001. Here we go. I don't think you'll mind when you see the performance. I'm pretty sure. You just kind of ignore that fact. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, right? It's fine. I think we are CPU limited. $117.6 FPS. 117 FPS versus 47. Yeah, I think you probably trade just a little bit of VGA smear for almost 3 times the performance. Yes, original Quake is very easy to run. Original Quake, remember, original Quake, it's Solid Snake 680 says, the original Quake is easy to run, it looks like, even on a Pentium 4. The original Quake, the minimum spec for it was a Pentium. Of any kind. So, like, Pentium 60, socket 4. Yeah, socket 4. Should run fine. Well, not fine, but should be playable, mostly. I think you can get about 20 FPS on a Pentium 60 on socket 4. Upgrade to a Pentium 90 on socket 5, you're looking at probably 35 FPS, 40 FPS maybe? Like, it's not a difficult game to run, and it runs in DOS. You know, the original Quake runs in DOS, and then this OpenGL port was one of the first hardware-accelerated games to exist. Carmack quite famously built original GL Quake for, like, the rendition Verite. I think he had that in his workstation when he was writing Quake at the time. He had a rendition Verite, like the V1000, like the first Verite. It was meant to run on anything that was OpenGL compliant. So, like, yeah, Verite, Permedia, Glint, you know, any of the early 3D chipsets. And it wasn't until 3DFX released the first Voodoo in 1996 that PC gamers really got a taste of high-speed accelerated OpenGL, right? Like the Permedia, the Glint, all that stuff. Not great, 3D accelerators. The Alliance AT3D, the Cirrus Logic Laguna 3D. Not amazing 3D processors, none of them. Anyway, let's do some Serious Sam. Quake didn't have glide, actually. So the way Quake, and especially GL Quake, ran on a Voodoo card was 3dfx made a mini GL just for Quake. It was a port. It was a tiny subset of the OpenGL specification. Everything that was needed to run Quake. It was like a wrapper library for Glide. But it looked to Quake, it looked like you had an OpenGL, hardware acceleration library, and to the Voodoo card, it looked like you were running a Glide game. But it wasn't either. It was a very clever trick. It was a very clever trick, and they actually used that trick for a lot of games. It turned out to be pretty efficient. 3dfx's drivers were some of the lowest overhead drivers at the time. Lower overhead even than NVIDIA's drivers. Like, the TNT2 should have been faster than the Voodoo 3. But it wasn't, because on paper it was definitely faster. In reality, it wasn't. Unless you pushed your resolutions way up to where the TNT2 could get a couple more frames per second because it had a little bit more, multi-texturing capability or whatever. The Voodoo 3 was faster because the drivers had lower overhead, and CPUs were the big limitation back in the day. When you were talking like a Pentium 2 450, that's your primary limitation. And any time that the driver is spending doing calculations or moving stuff around in memory, it's not rendering, that's time you're not getting frames on the screen. But this is significantly better than the FireGL. So let's run some 3D marks on this thing, see what it does. Be curious to know what the CPU score is on this thing. Probably not amazing. It's Pentium 4. Blake DMC says, oh gosh, Pentium 4. Not just Pentium 4. Original Pentium 4. We're doing the OG. We are suffering through 1.3 gigahertz of original net burst today. George Z88 asks, so is 16-bit color faster than 32-bit color? In these older graphics cards, yes. Simply because there's less color calculation to do. Less data needs to be moved around the internal memory buffers, and less math needs to be done. You can do, if you've got a 32-bit wide floating point unit, you can do two 16-bit operations inside that, where instead of one 32-bit operation. In modern graphics cards, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I think for most things, 16-bit transforms just get buffed, they just get like padded out to 32-bit. Unless you're running like I think like a Quadro or like a Radeon Instinct, then they'll pack those 16-bit, math operations into a 32-bit FMA unit. But yeah, no, back in the day, yes, because you had less color information to move around the cards. These are cards that are, phenomenally memory bandwidth limited. This GeForce, right? This original GeForce here, this OG GeForce, gets its name, the GeForce 256, from its memory bandwidth. It has a 256-bit bus, memory bus. It was the first card to do it. Well, it's the first consumer card to do it. Most up until then were 128-bit, and it needed every bit it could get. This thing was not memory bandwidth uh, efficient. It was very wasteful with its memory bandwidth. So let's do the default benchmark. So this is 3D Mark 2000. Yeah, this should run real nicely. This is like exactly what this hardware is made for. 3D Mark 2000 on a card that came out in 2000, on a CPU that came out in 2000, on Windows 2000. We are in the year 2000 right now. Oh, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. Thank you, Nathan. Nathan points out the GeForce 256 was 128-bit. And they came up with the 256 nomenclature rather randomly. That's unfortunate. Bummer. I thought that was the whole reason. I lived through that era. I thought the whole reason they called it the GeForce 256 is because it was 256-bit wide. Ah, crap. I've thought that for like 20 years. Oh, there's 4 SGRAM chips on it. I guess they're 32-bit SGRAMs? Or are they like ganged together to be 2 64-bit buses? I don't know. Yes, famously, NVIDIA coined the term GPU with the original GeForce. They set out like some stupid arbitrary, like, this is what a GPU is. It has to like process this many triangles and blah blah blah, and the term just ended up becoming, you know, generic. It's a GPU is to, you know, a graphics card as Kleenex is to facial tissue. You know, right? It's just become a generic term. Blake DMC says, I had a Pentium 4 through Windows XP, and gosh, it was terrible for XP. All the Pentium 4 was terrible for XP, but it was better for 98. Well, I don't know. I never actually had one. Believe it or not. So I had my 486 that I've talked at length about. Briefly, I switched back to Mac for a lot of my stuff at that point. Briefly, I had a Pentium 90 I overclocked to 100 megahertz. That was my gaming PC for a long time. And then I built a Celeron. I built a slot 1 Celeron, actually using a Slocket. I did the Slocket thing back in the day. I took a Celeron 667 and overclocked it to 950 megahertz. That was my gaming PC for a while, and I actually used, I have it on the shelf over there still, I used a TNT2 for that machine for a long, long time, because it was cheap. I couldn't afford a 3DFX card. They were expensive. As much as I wanted one, I couldn't afford a 3DFX card. After that machine, I built an Athlon XP. And I built an Athlon XP-M that I overclocked as well. So that was an 1800 plus, I think. Maybe it was a 2400 plus. It ran at 1.8 gigahertz, and I overclocked it to 2.4. And it was real good. I put it on an Enforce 2 board. The A-bit, the A-bit NF2 2.0, I forget, something like that. It's been a long time. It was a really, really nice machine. That sucker was fast. Oh, that thing was fast. And that went through, I went through several video cards with that machine. I had the TNT2 when I started. I just moved it over. And then I had GeForce 2 MX for a while. And then I got a GeForce FX 5200. I did not have any, like, super classy video cards for that machine for a long time. And I finally had enough money to, like, pick up a GeForce 6600 GT for that. And that was a heck of a card. I loved that 6600 GT. Radeon 9700 performance for cheap. It's a great card. But I never had a Pentium 4. After that machine, I think I've talked about this a little bit. After my Athlon XP, I gave it to my father-in-law. I wish I hadn't. And then I built an Athlon Socket 939, Athlon 64, out of older components. I think AM2 was current at the time, so I built the previous socket. I built 939. And that machine lasted about 3 months before all the caps inside it exploded. And it ruined the motherboard, it ruined the graphics card, which is a 7600 GT. I was so mad at that. And of course, I put it together with my own parts, and most of them were used or old, so I didn't have any warranty on them. So I was out of a computer at the time. And that was when I finally had a Pentium 4, because I bought a used Office PC. And I got a Northwood Pentium 4 hyperthreading, like a 3.06 gigahertz. The one that you know, the one everyone had. Every Office PC in the world was like that 3.06 gigahertz, you know, Pentium 4 Northwood hyperthreading. It was an IBM ThinkStation, a little tiny like desktop workstation thing. It sucked. It sucked so much. It was so bad. I did not like that machine, but it saved my bacon because it was $20. It got me a PC. Ugh. NVIDIA says I had a Pentium 4 3.4 gigahertz hyper-threaded workstation. That thing was loud. Yeah, I bet. I bet. Corey says the first 512-bit card was the HD 2900 XT. So that's why everybody likes the Radeon HD 2900 XT. I could never figure it out. First generation Terascale was kind of like, ugh, no thanks. Here we go. 4676 3D marks. I don't know if that's good or not. What do we get for frame rates in these? Game 1, helicopter, high detail, 1024 by 768, 33.5 FPS. Adventure, high detail, 39.1 FPS. 400 and almost 480 megatexels per second fill rate. It's a good card. Love those G-forces. Love those G-forces. NVIDIA asks, what CPU are we running right now? We are running I'm going to mispronounce it, Willamette? Pentium 4, first generation Pentium 4, 1.3 gigahertz. Oh yeah, 1.3. I do have a CPU-Z on here. The GPU-Z couldn't figure out what the FireGL was earlier, but CPU-Z can read the Pentium 4. I'll show you all the CPU-Z. There you go. Willamette. Pickle says I skipped the Pentium 4 and had a Thunderbird 1.2. It's good machines. I had a friend when I built my Acceleron. A friend of mine in college at the time built a Duron. I overclocked the snot out of that Duron, and so also a really good machine. Joe's Computer Museum says, I had a Radeon 9800 Pro for a while. It's a good card. 9800s were great. That R300 was a hell of an architecture. God, that was good. Johnny Chang asks, was the AGP bus ever saturated with the video card speeds and bandwidth of their age? If you asked 3DFX, they'd say no. Famously, most of their cards, I think that changed with VSA 100 with the Voodoo 4 and Voodoo 5, but like all the way up through the Voodoo 3s, they treated the AGP slot like it was just a PCI slot. And I've been meaning to do a little look at that because I happen to have a pair of Voodoo 3s, Voodoo 3 2000s, so they're not super duper fast, but I have a PCI version and an AGP version. And I've got motherboards that can run them, fast motherboards that can run them. I've got a couple of 440BX boards now at this point, and I'm just looking for a CPU that's fast enough to really stress them out. And we should be able to see, like, does PCI make any difference versus AGP back in the day? It would take a while for AGP to really make sense. And I'll be honest, like, during my testing of video cards throughout the last few years I've been running the channel, once you get into, like, AGP 4X, it doesn't seem to matter. I don't ever see, like, a smoothness issue or frame rate issue with AGP 4X versus AGP 8X. I don't know. Like, you can make these, you can stress these things out, right? Like, the way to stress out a system like this is, you know, to lower the resolution all the way down, you know, turn off as many graphical options as possible so the graphics card is drawing a frame as fast as it can, because then it's going to be waiting for the CPU to send the frame data over, right? So then the CPU, the bus connection between the CPU and the graphics card is going to matter more. And that's a point where you might see the faster AGP buses make sense. But then you're also going to be running into the limitations of the CPU itself, like how fast the CPU is, and how fast it can process instructions and get that next frame over to the graphics card. You know, even get the frame out, you know, get it out of the CPU onto the bus over to the graphics card, and you run into, like, the memory bandwidth issues. It's a whole thing. Going fast in 3D graphics is one of the harder hardware problems, actually. It turns out. Corey Flammer says, I get a CPU score of 600 with my Slot A Thunderbird. I did not notice what our CPU score was. I closed it before I looked at it. Was that with 3D Mark 2000? Because I can just rerun the CPU test. Does that have a CPU test? I don't remember. I know 2001 does. Custom benchmark. Let's do CPU speed. Yeah. Let's just do the CPU speed. Go. Details. CPU score. So yeah, there you go. CPU score of 414 with the 1.3 gigahertz Pentium 4. It's not fast. Not fast. 2/3 the performance. Oh yeah, NVIDIA Mass, so socket 423, yes. And yes, Ryzen 9 is correct, we are using Rambus. We've got a half a gig of Rambus PC800 in this machine. Nice! Blake DMC says, speaking of workstations, I scored a Dell Precision M6800 for $120 plus shipping. Nice. Not bad. I'm happy because I can upgrade the snot out of it and have it for some side things. It takes pressure off my gaming rig. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have that. It definitely is. Alright, so that's 3D Mark 2000. Let's do 2001. And yes, I do have Microsoft Office installed on this thing, just for the heck of it. Oh, we can run PowerPoint! Look at how fast it opens PowerPoint. Go away, Clippy. Oh my god. Please go away. It's a mistake. That was a mistake. Just not want to open up. Not want to open up Office. Okay, so default benchmark on 3D Mark 2000. Let's see what she does. Mevunky says, ha 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 ha, terrible. I bet my Pentium 3 1400 eats that. Yeah, It should. It absolutely should. Willamette's not great. It's really not great. Intel improved the core a lot with Northwood, but we all know, you know, even Northwood wasn't that great versus Athlons. That's for sure. Raz9 asks, can you overclock? At the moment, this has the default HP BIOS on it, so I don't have any overclocking options in the BIOS. I can try some set FSB, but I do also have my 1.7. I have another Willamette. I'm going to show you. One sec. I used this one to set this machine up this morning, because I had limited amount of time to get a machine working for stream, but that's my 1.7. It does work. I didn't notice it being any faster, particularly, like in general use. I'm sure if we ran a couple of benchmarks, it might post a few more frames per second than the 1.3, but like, most of the slowness, I think, with Willamette and Socket 423, which is, yeah, it's this crazy, like, keep this in the frame. There we go. It's this just totally nutso, like, package on package, huge grid spacing. Like, it's just so wild. It's such a weird, it's just such a weird socket. So strange. I didn't notice it being particularly faster. The whole system felt more responsive with the 1.3 in it, honestly. This motherboard is from the HP Vectra VL800, and the stock CPUs that HP offered were the 1.3 that we're running right now, and then a 1.5 gigahertz Willamette. And you could spec this with 512 gigs of RAM, or 512 megs. You could also put in a full gigabyte. The base RAM for it was 256 megs, which was respectable for 2000, I think it was? 2001 maybe? Respectable amount of RAM. You know, 160 was about the sweet spot for Windows 2000. More than that didn't seem to benefit the machine. Less than that, you'd start to run into swap issues, depending on what you're running on it. But, yeah. Blake DMC. Oh yes, 1024 by 768, the 1080p back in the day. Well, so the thing is, right, like, back in the day, you know, we were gaming on CRTs, right? Like, we didn't have the pixel density that we have now with LCD monitors, but you could turn your resolution down and not lose sharpness. You lost clarity, don't get me wrong, like, you had fewer pixels making up your image, but they were still sharp pixels, you know? Like, you didn't lose sharpness when you reduced resolution, you just lost clarity. So, like, it wasn't such a big deal to, like, drop your resolution down to get more frame rate when you were on a CRT. And it versus, like, you know, it like scratches your eyeballs when you run an LCD monitor, you know, below its native resolution. It looks awful, you know, unless you're doing like integer scaling or something, which also didn't exist back then. Which is also a weird thing. Like, why you would think integer scaling would be easier for like LCD controllers to do, but they all seemed to do that same gross, blurry, bilinear filtering. Or you had some of the LCD controllers that were really cursed, and they would just like, they'd just put a pixel wherever they could. So you'd have like, some pixels would be giant, some would be tiny, and like, oh god, they were so bad. Or more commonly, if you fed a signal to an LCD monitor back in the day, and it wasn't the same resolution as the monitor itself, you'd get a window in the middle of your monitor, surrounded by black. LCDs used to be real bad. Real bad. HC says Clippy is immortal. Yes, sadly. Ryzen 9 is like 1.7 plus set FSB? Ryzen 9 really wants me to overclock this thing, and I'm like, I want to do a video on this thing. I want to burn up this hardware. I'm just glad that this thing booted this morning. Otherwise, I didn't know what I was going to do for a video today, or for a stream today. Mivunky says, my friend had the 1.7 with RAM bus at the time. It felt great when new, but aged like milk. There is something wrong with the Intel 850 chipset, I swear. It's just not right. It's just not right. I think it has something to do with the RDRAM. Garth Beagle says, I think they borrowed this from The Matrix, maybe. Yeah, so that's, it's borrowed from Max Payne, which is borrowed from The Matrix. Yeah, the lobby scene is, heavily inspired, shall we say, by a certain film that came out just about a year prior. But yeah, Max Payne had, like, you know, the bullet time thing. Like, you could play a game where you could be in bullet time just like Neo. Yeah, it's just a little bit inspired by The Matrix. Slightly. Mivunky says, we finally have this now with render scaling in games. Yeah. It's still not great, though. Like, jeez. We keep getting resolution wrong. Okay, so details. There we go. So we've got, of course, Game 4 Nature, not supported by hardware. Sorry, you don't have the shaders. Yeah, so, Lobby High Detail, 28 FPS. Drygothic High Detail, 24 FPS. Car Chase High Detail, 21 FPS. Not incredible scores, honestly. But I think it's probably being let down by something else in the system. Just a thought. It's probably being let down by something else. Our fill rate is down, so we were at just about 480 megapixels in 3D Mark 2000, and we're down to 427 now. For who knows why. Processor overhead? I don't know. What is the date on my driver? I wonder if there's no driver optimizations for 3D Mark in this. That'd be funny. That was definitely a thing that NVIDIA was doing at the time. Definitely a thing. They were optimizing for the benchmarks to make them look good. Date. Is there a date on these? It's 45.23. I don't... Nope. RQ9 BIOS version. Let's see a date on these. 45.29. I got it off of Phil's site. I think he said it was 2001. I'm pretty sure. Phil's Computer Lab. Yeah, it was the first. It's the first Windows XP graphics driver available on his site. It's 03. So no, it should have optimizations in here for 3D Mark 01. So it's not doing great. Not doing great. Can't imagine why. It's probably not the GeForce. That's my guess. It's probably not the GeForce. Oh, let's see. What else did I put on here? Black and white will work. I don't know. Oh no! Nope. Needs DirectX 8. Morrowind should work with DX7. That's about all I've got installed on here right now. Oof. Unsupported desktop resolution. Let's try the launcher. Set some options. Nope. I bet it wants me to be in 32-bit color. Mevunky says, oh my, is that a 256 DDR? It is. It is. You have, this chat should be over there. You have Nathan to thank for that one. Nathan very graciously sent in this Asus V6800, I think, GeForce 256 DDR for the channel, and I am now its caretaker. So yes, it is a GeForce 256. It's quite the card. It is quite the card. Let's see if this will let me run this now. Let's do 800 by 600, then you don't have to change any resolutions. Game. Hey, there we go. Bethesda games. Good old Bethesda games. I have no idea. I probably have a save in this, but it says it couldn't find a bunch of its mods? Which is, I don't remember modding, because this is the version of Morrowind that I keep for my testing systems. I don't remember modding it. Let's do a new game. We'll start in the ship. The classic Morrowind start. I'll skip tutorial. Name, subscribe! Y'all should do that right now, down at the bottom. Whoa, that's chunky. That is chunky. Where's that clip of Todd Howard saying, well, you might have to upgrade your PC to play this game? Oh. Oh no, it froze, didn't it? Oh, it froze. Yep, good old Morrowind. That's not a great frame rate though. Holy cow. What is over there that's... Unfortunately, I am stuck in place. I can't move. He has not said his line to me to trigger the unlock of movement, so... Good old Bethesda. Unbelievable. I don't have a ton more on here, although I do have some installs. Games. Yes, I have the Crysis demo. It's not going to run very well on a GeForce 256, but I do also have Unreal Tournament 2003 demo. So you can try that. Trina says, I'm already subscribed. Thank you, Trina. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody who subscribes. One of these days, this channel will actually make money, I hope. Until then, I gotta stop buying hardware is the thing. I was gonna say, until then I do it for fun, but I already do it for fun. That's not gonna change. It just means I gotta stop buying hardware, because none of it's being offset. Corey says, you mean net bust. Pretty much. Pretty much. Yes, Morrowind is technically a DX8 game, although it's DX7, and then you can turn on, like, specifically, the water has a pixel shading effect. And that's it. Everything else is DX7. Nathan says, I was already subbed, but I'll be sure to click thumbs up. Thank you so much. Also, that also helps. If YouTube sees, like buttons, they will push the video out to more people to see if they would like to see it. I appreciate that. That's been my biggest problem lately. All my videos get like 100 views. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I wish I knew what I was doing wrong. Alright. Now the thing is, like, Unreal Tournament 2003, also a DirectX 8 game, but it has a DirectX 7 render path because the GeForce 2 MX was hugely, hugely popular. And there were so many GeForce 2 MXs and GeForce 4 MXs out there in the market that most game developers couldn't, like you could support DirectX 8 and DX8 features, but you couldn't make your game like exclusively DX8. You had to have a fallback render path because 80% of the market couldn't play the game. That's a kind of a difference from like today's games where like these studios will release a game that 80% of the market can't play and just say, I guess you gotta upgrade your PC. It's wild. Alright, so let's do No. It's not in here. Alright, well, let's do Capture the Flag. What map? Map. Orbital. I think I'm thinking of... I know what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of 2004 with the Capture and Hold. Onslaught, I think. Onslaught's such a good game mode. Which side of it does it need to be on? Let's do add all. Okay, it needs to be on the right side. I love what's going on in the chat. Could Microsoft buy Sega? That is a great question. They might be able to buy Sega of America? But like the whole of Sega? I don't know. That is a chunky texture. What is going on with the texture settings on this? Holy cow. This just defaulted to low, didn't it? Yeah? Lower texture detail. Do normal. Nope, I missed. Thank you. Normal. Thanks. Turn on the detail textures. Those are good. Let's see what we've got now. Oh, that's less chunky. It's fine. We've got plenty of VRAM. Oh, hello. Good old Redeemer. Good old Redeemer. I love they just stick it right out in the open in this map. That's great. This runs pretty okay. Like I said, you know, you really had to provide a DX7 render path because literally 80% of your gaming market was still on a still on a DX7 card. Because they were on either a GeForce 2 MX or they were on a GeForce 4 MX, and they just didn't have the pixel shaders that the DX8 cards had. But mostly, like, it was mostly water shaders, right? Like, DX8 wasn't that impressive for what you can do. It was programmable, but not super programmable. Some shiny surfaces and some water reflections. Runs pretty good though, right? Like, that is acceptable performance. I believe this uses Unreal Engine 2? I'm pretty sure 03 and 04 I think run on Unreal Engine 2.0. Unreal Tournament 99 is like a fork of the original Unreal Engine. It's Unreal 1.5 I think people call it, but this is Unreal Engine 2. Unreal Engine 2 a little more optimized than the original Unreal Engine. That was the last time that would be the case. I think UE4 wasn't too bad by the end. I think UE5 will probably get there eventually, but boy, the odd numbers on Unreal Engine games, not great. But yeah, that runs great. This is an alright gaming PC. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's alright. It's alright. What else? I have Cinebench, but it's kind of boring. Nobody wants to see Cinebench. Oh, you know, I should have run this. It's got an OpenGL benchmark built into it. I should have run it when I did FireGL in it. That'd be interesting. How is chat doing? Mivunky says, yeah, with the GeForce 2, this system would run plenty nice. Yeah. Yeah, you know, I mean, I was surprised to see, like, an HP, this was a workstation. You know, this was the Vectra. This was HP's workstation. And they were, you know, offering it with a GeForce 2 GTS. Which is not a bad card. It was not a bad card at the time. Although I guess it's not that weird, like you can spec a Dell with like a 4090. It's a Dell 4090, but like it's still a 4090. So I guess it's not totally weird. But we get almost 13 Cinebench points, Cinebench 2000. Fast. I think that's it. I think it's all the stuff I've got, unless I can grab a different graphics card. Anybody wants anything they want to see? It's AGP 4X, but I want to say it's keyed weirdly. I think the slot is keyed strangely. The chat, like, would Microsoft buy Sega? It'd be interesting. You know, I don't know. I never thought I'd see, like, the two large media companies in the world become Microsoft and Disney. I never ever thought that would be the case. But maybe. And Nintendo, right? So we've got, what, 4? Sony, Nintendo, you know, Sega. Well, not Sega, but, Microsoft and Disney, right? Like the big 4 media companies now. It's a little weird. It's a little weird. I don't know if Disney would buy Sega. I don't think they're really heavily invested in games, you know? What if Sony bought Sega? How wild would that be? How wild would that be? We can turn up the graphics performance real quick before we end the stream. What do we think? I've got a 6600 GT. I don't know if I have a driver for this. 45.23. I don't think that's new enough for the 6000 series. Let me double check. Drivers. Not quite. Goes up through the GeForce FX. Let's see. If I grab... What version is that? 67.66. I'm going to show you a trick. I've got this set up on my LAN for these retro machines. I've got a web rendering proxy. So this is Browse Service. So I've got a virtual machine running on my home lab that's just got a Windows 10 VM in it running Chrome and Browse Service. So I can just access it from a retro browser. I should be able to download files through it, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it'll let me do that. So like here in Internet Explorer, I just have like the cache turned off. You go into the temporary internet files and just tell it to like always fetch the newest version. And then it doesn't take up any space on your drive. So that goes down to the FX. There's a 6800. 6766. I think this is the... There we go. It's doing the thing. Yeah, look at that. Nice. I'm going to put that in my installs folder. Look at that. We just downloaded a driver for the modern internet. Browse Service is pretty cool, I have to say. It's pretty nice. Drivers. 67, 66. I'll just update this now, and then we'll throw the card in. See if we can speed this thing up. What did we get in GL Quake? 317 FPS? No, it's 371 in Quake, and 117 in Quake 3. So we'll just double our pixel pipelines and see what happens. Udem U says, do you have some Radeons? Boy do I ever. Boy do I ever have some Radeons. I have got some Radeons. What I don't got is spare Molex power connectors. Unfortunately. Oh, and I just screwed myself with this one too, because this needs a Molex power connector. I don't have spare Molex power connectors, that's my issue. Because I've got Radeons. I've got like a 4650 AGP I could throw in this thing, but I don't have a spare Molex power connector. I wonder if that actually uses the PCI Express power connector. Let me double check. I think I have that over here. That's not here. That's PCI Express. PCI Express. Where's my AGP radio? That's not good. bunch of old PCI Express cards. I don't actually remember if the 4650 has a PCI Express power connector on it. It's all PCI Express. GeForce 3 is technically faster. Swivels over here. Let's see if PCI Express that. That's PCI Express. There you are. Oh, it's still Molex. Crud. No, I've got a 4650 AGP, but it still needs a Molex connector. What I need is that power supply. Oh, crud. Crud. The power supply I'm using on this thing only has SATA ports. There's no Molex connectors. So, I've got... I don't need my CD-ROM drive. I don't need my CD-ROM drive. We're cooking with gas now. Hang on. Because I have it better than a 6600 GT. Yeah, we've got better than a 6600 GT here. We've got a 6800 GS. This puppy fast. Let's give this thing a CPU bottleneck. Oh, and Ryzen 9 wants, I haven't even looked at the chat, but Ryzen 9 wants SpeedSys, so we'll do that too. I'm going to turn this thing off anyway. to change around the power cables. Blake DMC says Molex to 12 VH power. Martin Mack, hello, welcome to the stream. I would say you've joined a computer crime currently in progress, but we're just upgrading stuff at this point. We are looking at one of the worst Pentium 4s ever made, though. She's not great. Alright, so. So I have these cool GPU stands. I think I've probably talked about before on the channel. Like this one here for the 4650. These little guys. I need to reprint a bunch of them because they don't quite fit. They just kind of fall off. And I picked up some Inland brand filament that is, where is it? Here it is. It's like the perfect color for AGP. It's like perfect AGP brown. Look at that brown. That's gonna be so good for printing out, you know, graphics card holders for my AGP cards. So good. It's like perfect AGP brown. Alright, so that was the lovely and influential GeForce 256 DDR. The second version of the GeForce. Definitely the better version of the GeForce because it was significantly less memory bandwidth constrained. That was, again, a very, very, very generous donation by Nathan from Pixel Pipes, which I super, super, super duper appreciate. Freaking awesome. Thank you, man. You are the MVP. The real MVP. Okay, so this big ol' chungus needs a Molex. Thankfully, this is a version that only needs one Molex, because you can see there are blanks there for two Molex connectors. This one only needs one. This is an early version of the 6800 GS. I believe this does use the full, I forget what the code name for this die is, but it uses the full die, and then they fused off some of the shaders. Well, they didn't fuse them off. They disabled them in the VBIOS. It is possible to shader unlock these. I have not tried that yet with this card, but it is possible to shader unlock a 6800 GS. Alright, let's get that power connected there. That went in way too easily. I need a new adapter. It's been too long. Okay. So we did the driver install before we turned the machine off. So we should be able to just hop right in to a Windows that recognizes the card. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Let's flip back over to that. Cool, I'll turn that on. Doing that thing. Martin says that's a chunky motherboard. Yes. This is the HP WMTA. This is Willamette? Pronounce it wrong all the time. This is original Pentium 4. Socket 423. Oh no. Oh, you know what I did? Oh, I know what I did. I unplugged the power from the CD-ROM drive, and I did not unplug the data cable, so it's very confused at the moment. Oh, no bent pens. We're fine. We're fine. It's okay. Give me one sec here. Good old Windows. Yep, blue screen of death. So let me unplug the... That was the CD-ROM unplugged. We should be good to go. Hopefully. Let's do, you gonna do the thing, Windows? Come on. The SD card reader is technically plugged into the primary IDE slot, according to the silk screen on the motherboard. One of those fans is running very fast. The AC's kicked in. It has not. One of these fans is running very fast. I'm not sure which one it is. It's not happy, whatever's happened. I think that was the CPU fan. Third time's the charm. Nope. It's all falling apart. It's all falling apart. Tried to upgrade the graphics card, and now it's all falling apart. I'm going to do the thing that I did before, which was reset the configuration data. So I'm guessing that's what's going on. Here we go. So I just reset this. This is just a plug and play, like the PCI steering. So it's going to renegotiate all the PCI lanes, which will include the AGP card. And this is going to be, this will be one of those long boots where it sits at the BIOS screen. But I will make it do a boot menu as well. So this will be a bit, or not. Sure, okay. Udem says, I used to want this Pentium 4 1.3 GHz, even though it was half the size, has half the size of cache compared to the faster Willamettes. I was curious about NetBurst and RIM. Oh, Windows 2000 is not happy. It's not happy about not having that CD-ROM drive there. That's frustrating. I've got a Radeon 9600 XT. It's It's not terribly fast, but it is DX9, so I can run that. That doesn't require a Molex power connector. I just need more Molex power connectors. I need more SATA to Molex power connectors. Did I uninstall all drivers? I did not. It was NVIDIA to NVIDIA. I just upgraded in place. I did reboot between, so the new drivers were in effect. But, yeah, Alex says, I remember having a motherboard with Duron that would only boot when using some specific GPUs. There's a list. Yeah, I've got an SIS socket A motherboard that's got universal AGP on it, but the AGP slot is only AGP4X, which normally isn't a problem. Like, that's my AGP test bench is also AGP4X, universal AGP. And it'll run an AGP8X card just fine. But not this particular motherboard. Anything AGP8X you put into it, it just won't boot. So yeah, I have definitely seen that before. This, though, I think this is one of the problems. One of like the major problems with Windows 2000 is that it's very fragile in terms of its boot environment. In this case, I have shuffled around the boot, the boot order in the BIOS now because I don't have a CD-ROM drive attached. So it's missing. It can't, when it loads up the kernel, it can't find the hard drive, the SD card. It's great. Thanks, Windows. I'm going to take one real quick check for one more, see if I have one more SATA to Molex adapter, because I really want to run this card in there and see what it does. And obviously, to do that, I'm going to need to have the CD-ROM drive in there as well, which is incredible to me. This is the part of Windows 2000 I don't miss, unfortunately. Okay, that took like 5 seconds. I had one on my my permanent slot 1 system, so I just have to remember to put this back there so that system still boots. But we should be good to go. So let's get this plugged back in. Come on. Is it key the wrong way? No, there it is. There we go. I need a different power supply for this machine. That's what I need. Something that has Molex connectors and not SATA connectors. Okay. Oh yeah, I don't know if y'all noticed the, let me pull back to the full desk shot, but this thing, oh, of course you didn't notice, I'm in the way. Here. The power cable for the motherboard, here. This is an early Pentium 4 board, and it has the original Pentium 4 power connector on it. So that's this guy here, like half of an AT power cable, just plugged into the board, and then you can't quite see it down here. This little brown cable also goes to the power supply, and this is your normal ATX 12 volt that we know today, a 4-pin ATX 12 volt. But you had this and this, along with the 20-pin ATX connector that you're used to. So the original Pentium 4 needed a lot of power, a lot of power that people weren't expecting. Fortunately, you can grab these power adapters on eBay for fairly cheap, and this one that I got will even like give you an ATX 12 volt out of the wire loom, but I'm using the actual ATX 12 volt out of the power supply, so it doesn't feed off of one rail. I don't know if that actually matters, but I think it might. But anyway, that's the power situation on this thing is, it's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, let's try this one more time. Now that we've got power for the CD-ROM drive and power for the graphics card. Do an F8 here. Give me that boot menu. Give me that boot menu. Martin Max says, I'd have run Windows XP. Well, this is it was supposed to be a year 2000 build. At the beginning of the stream, we tried out the, move my mouse here. Beginning of the stream, we tried out this graphics card, which is the Fire GL2, circa 2000. We've got, you know, a Willamette, circa 2000-ish. Also, you know, obviously Windows 2000. Yeah, it's a Windows 2000. It's a year 2000 build. XP was a glimmer in Microsoft's eye. At this point, not really, but so this is. I'm gonna say this is promising because the last time we changed graphics cards, you know, had to reset the configuration data, and then it sat here for a while. I think we might be good to go this time. I'm gonna cross my fingers. It's not promising. Try safe mode, I guess. See if that'll do it. Jeez, unbelievable. There we go. Safe mode. I think I'm gonna have to drop in a different card. Oh, here we go. I was like, I'm gonna have to drop in a different card. This thing just does not want to do the thing. Okay, Mac. Hello. How's it going? Well, welcome to the stream. This wasn't supposed to be a computer crime currently in progress, but my GeForce 6800 GS is not behaving. It has decided to. It has chosen violence. So I'm trying to get this thing to install correctly. Windows 2000 is plug and play fussy, yeah, for real. Windows was plug and play fussy. It's possible, Alex. It's possible. Maybe something similar is happening. Honestly, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Apparently my chair looks like Johnny Five. Oh god, I haven't seen that movie in decades. Short Circuit? It was so good. Well, I thought it was good when I was a kid, so I don't know. Okay. What the heck? Maybe? Well, I didn't start it up with safe mode with networking, unfortunately. So all I have are, like, all the drivers I already have installed. So I've got 45.23 and 67.66. And that's basically it. Let's see, if I do, think about over here. If I... It's just not gonna see it, is it? Onboard SCSI? Since when does it have onboard SCSI? Huh. Apparently it's got onboard SCSI. Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I guess I'll try a different card. Let's shut it down. It's unfortunate. I can try the 6600 GT. It's a little less power hungry. Maybe that's its issue. Martin says, I think the installation is borked. It's far from borked, Martin. It's far from borked. We've got a long way to go before we get to borked. There we go. A long way to go before we get to borked. Alright. Let's try the 6600 GT. Should still be faster than the GeForce, the original GeForce. I should not need nearly as much power. It has a louder fan, though, that's for sure. It's got a louder fan. Inaccessible boot device. I wonder if it's taking the IRQ of the IDE controller. God, I hate old PCs sometimes. I wonder if that's what it's doing. Let's see. I had to tempt fate, didn't I? Let's put a faster graphics card in it. Yeah, it'll be great. switch back to the GeForce. If need be, and switch back to the FireGL. At least temporarily. It's always something. It's always something. Resource conflict. See, so let's do, because it did this to me last time. I put the GeForce in it. So we'll do reset configuration data, yes. It is saving its settings in this, right? Yeah, okay. As it's saving changes, it'll reboot. And it should sit at the HP screen for a bit while it figures out all of its PCI IRQ settings. We need some elevator music while it figures out all of its PCI steering. The Intel 850 chipset, not spectacular. Not a spectacular chipset. HC says I need an Ethernet card for my RAM bus machine. I'm using a 3Com. Resource conflict. You were supposed to fix that. The whole reason I told you to reset all of your stuff was to fix that. I bet that's what's happening. I bet that's what's happening with this stupid thing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn off all the ports. Floppy disk controller's already off. So let's do... Yep, parallel port is turned off. So let's turn off the serial port. Turn off the integrated audio because it doesn't work anyway. That's probably fine. These are all defaults. But like, shall work. Shall be fine. Reset configuration data. Let's see if it does it. Trina, this girl's on fire. Yeah! I'm burning down. Come on, thing. You've done this before. You can do it again. Micro Hobbyist says, do F9 set up defaults. I might. If this still doesn't work, I might just do that. Inaccessible boot device making ass. Well, maybe I'll have to turn up the volume on the built-in. Resource conflict. Well, you know what? I have a really, really easy way to fix that. A really easy way to fix that resource conflict with the Ethernet card. It's very simple. Revolutionary. Let me show you. Fixed. I hope. Jeez. Well, I was going to recommend my 3Com 3C905, but apparently it's been misbehaving. So maybe I'll say no. I'm going to go for broke. Let's boot the 6800 GS. Power. Where is the... Ah, the intake is over there. Okay. Let's put that fan there. Cool air on the intake. Okay. Let's see what it does. Going for broke. We have any bets in the chat? What do we think? I'm hoping for big bucks, no whammies. Joe says, thanks to myself, I am spinning up a VM right now for browse service. Yeah, browse service and web rendering proxy are two, like web rendering proxy is the older project and it works on older browsers, all the way back to like Mosaic. But yeah, you can browse the modern web on a retro PC if you go through browse service or web rendering proxy. It's good stuff. Come on, baby. Pretty please. Do not tell me it was a network card. It was a stupid network card. So maybe, yeah, I rescind my recommendation for a 3Com 3C905 because clearly it's a bad idea. I'm going to reinstall that driver and get it to do its thing. Unbelievable. Let's go. Sloopy says the 3C905 can do no wrong. It's the motherboard. Blake DMC says, I don't miss dedicated network cards. Onboard Ethernet was a great thing. It was real nice. When, you know, as long as it continues working, I've had a lot of VIA motherboards throughout the years that, that VIA Rhine Ethernet, that's like the first thing to go on that board. It's the first thing to die. I've got a couple of Realtek's, PCI Realtek's that should have drivers back to 2000, I think all the way back to 98 even. And I've got an Intel, some kind of fast Ethernet card from Intel that should also have drivers back to 2000. So like, if I really need networking, which I don't think I really need, yeah, no, for real. Gutbomb says it's still a good card, it's just bad timing. It's the second most deployed network card of all time, the first being the 3Com 3C509. That was its predecessor, and I have fond memories of the 509. I still have one. I have two actually. I have my original 509 that I had in my 486. So here we might be seeing what's going on. This is having trouble installing a driver. It's having a bad time. So I'm gonna guess that this card is not gonna work. It's just not gonna play nicely with Windows 2000. Yeah, doesn't like it. Bummer. I have a GeForce 3. I have a GeForce 4, but it doesn't have a heatsink right now. Trying to think of anything else that I have that's faster. I have a Radeon 9800 Pro, but it's getting to that point where, like, I don't want to use it if I don't have to. If I run it for too long, like over an hour, it starts to artifact, so I'm trying not to use it. I gotta fix it. I gotta fix it. Whatever the heck its problem is, I gotta fix it. What else do I have? What else do I have? I guess the GeForce 3 might. You know, that should be the speed of a GeForce 2 GTS, plus an added pixel shader. Joe JCM says setting up and managing VMs on a Hyper-V is cake. I don't have to think, that's why I like it. I use Proxmox, but that's because my home lab down there is it's just running off of an old X79 board. Let's see. Trying to think of what I could use, because I've got suppose, you know, we're booting, so I could try this 6600. It's worth a shot. I really hope my 6800 GS is not dead. That's a nice card. Where did my stand? Oh, I didn't bring my stand in here for it. That was dumb. Alright, 6600 GT it is, and we'll see if we can get this thing to boot and go a little faster. If this doesn't work, I guess just throw the GeForce 3 in it. There's not much left we can do. Okay. Let's do this thing. Come on, baby. Big bucks, no whammies. The fan on that card just sounds so unhappy. Sloopy Malibu says, I heat my house with a dual Pentium 3 Xeon. At least we're booted. Sorry, 3Com card, you're just... It would probably work if I put it in a different slot. Like, that's not how PCI should work, but sometimes that's how PCI works. It's like we're back in the ATXT era. I'm gonna move it to a different slot. It's possible that some of the slots on the board, like, are like hardwired to particular IRQs. It's not a common thing to happen, but it's not uncommon. Alright, well that automatically recognized it and installed the driver, so... I hope my 6800 GS is okay. I like that card a lot. I don't want it to be dead. Joe says, I'm just now realizing I don't have a Windows 10 ISO. That's... Honestly, Joe, that's a wonderful world to live in. I wish I lived in that world, where I didn't have a Windows 10 ISO. Instead of 12 Windows 10 ISOs. I'm kidding, I don't have 12. I do have 4, though, because I've got some of the earlier builds, and I just recently downloaded 22H2. Because this machine y'all are watching me on needed 22H2 in order to play Starfield. And I refused to go to Windows 11. Ta-da! Well then! I think my 6800 GS might be dead. It might not like this motherboard, but I'm gonna have to test that thing in a different board. Pull down my AGP test bench and make sure the thing still works. Because, oh boy, oh boy. Now, we're back to very crispy VGA. It's looking real nice. This is, this 6600 GT I picked up on eBay. It's by Point of View. I've never heard of the company, but like, they put a nice DAC in it because the VGA is very crispy. We'll make sure that our... Oh boy, we got more options now. Where is the VSync? U. Off. Apply. There we go. That should be a global setting. No VSync. Okay. Let's see what GLQuick... Oh, you know what I'm going to have to do, though? I gotta rebuild the... I gotta have Quake rebuild all the model data. So what you do is you just delete the GLQuake folder inside id1. Bloop. That's all dynamically generated by GLQuake. So then we should be able to just run it. Also, by the way, if you're ever wondering why my versions of GLQuake that I run don't have that weird yellow, like, orbular thing around, like, when an enemy fires, you get the weird yellow orb. GL Flash Blend 0. Set that on GLQuake, it'll look like normal Quake. That was a default that Carmack set way back in the day because actually doing the like dynamic lighting that way, like the correct way, was slower on some graphics cards. But I think that was only like pre-Voodoo graphics cards, because I have a Voodoo graphics in my permanent slot 1 system, and it runs Quake just fine with GL Flash Blend turned off. I have to imagine that it was only like the Verites of the day that like couldn't handle it, so GL Flash Blend 0. Anyway, let's see what this thing can do. Let's do a map start, and we'll do a time demo. Demo 1. Pretty much the same. 316.6 FPS. Which is still very fast. Still very, very fast. Let's see what Quake 3 does, though. Because This GPU is right around the performance level of like a 9800, 9700. We've got 8 pixel pipelines. We're DirectX 9. She's quick. She runs about the same clock speeds. So, we'll do a oh, you know what? I changed graphics cards, so I need to reset my system settings. So we're 640 by 480 again, 32-bit. High texture detail, trilinear filtering. So now we're back to the same settings we've been using the whole time, where we got 47 FPS on the FireGL and we got 117 on the GeForce 256. And let's see what we get this time. Max FPS 0, so we'll turn off the maximum FPS cap. And we'll do time demo. We'll turn that on with time demo 1. And then we'll do a demo 001. Voila! The VGA output's much crispier this time. Much crispier. It's still not quite as crisp as that FireGL. That had some great VGA. Blake DMC asks, does Starfield run on Windows 10 Enterprise long-term servicing 2021 Internet of Things? I wouldn't bet. I wouldn't bet on it. It seems to have a... There seems to be a check in the executable that looks for Windows 10 22H2, or better, because of course that's the first version of Windows 11 as well, it's 22H2. So I don't know if it will. I don't know if it'll work. I was running Windows 10 20H2, and it told me my graphics drivers were wrong. That my graphics drivers were out of date, or my graphics card wasn't powerful enough. I have 3080. Once I upgraded my Windows install, which required me to reinstall it because something broke in the upgrade process. Once I reinstalled Windows with 22H2, Starfield runs just fine. So I wouldn't count on it running on Windows 10 IoT 2021. I think it needs a 2022 like build of Windows 10. I would hold off on it. We did go up in performance. I'm gonna run this test one more time because I saw some lag in there. I think it was SD card loading lag. So we had 117 last time on the GeForce 256. Yeah, there we go. 155.8. 155.8. I get the feeling we might be CPU limited at this point, maybe? Because, like, this should be about twice as fast as the GeForce 256, just in pure rasterization. But I don't think the 1.3 gigahertz, Pentium 4 is going to give us 230 FPS in this game. Pretty sure. Let's check out Serious Sam now. We had bets 140 FPS, 178 FPS. They're 155. So splitting the difference. So let's see the video options. We're still running OpenGL, but now at this point we can run Direct3D. And yes, we've been running at 800 by 600 this whole time, including the FireGL. We'll do the 1080p of 1999. 1024 by 768. So far, honestly, like, other than, like, the resource conflict garbage, this thing's been great. I'm impressed. I'm pretty sure this game is CPU limited. I'm pretty sure. I don't think I did it on stream, but I ran this demo on the FireGL earlier. And looking across the courtyard that direction that it's looking right now, I swear it was the same speed on the FireGL. I think this game is CPU limited. I don't know why Fraps isn't doing anything. I have Fraps installed, it's just not showing anything on the Windows. Hello, Windows? There we go. I needed to think. Oh, Fraps isn't running. Why is Fraps not running? Oh. Just like I get burned with MSI Afterburner. Fraps does not, by default, start with Windows. Okay, Fraps. I'm pretty sure. Of course, I wasn't running Fraps when I was running the other apps. But we could do a 3D mark. Oh, Joe, you didn't hear it from me, but you can just hit skip on the product key. Just say I don't have one. You can always fill it in at a later date. You know? When you're doing the install, you can skip it for now. You can always fill it in at a later date. Definitely. I'm positive everyone in this chat pays for Windows, right? Yeah. Everyone in this chat pays for Windows. Gutbomb says, the Serious Sam series has been on my gaming backlog for like 20 years. I still haven't gotten around to trying it. So, I know Civvy has some words about it. Like, Civvy's not a huge fan of Serious Sam. Because Civvy doesn't really like... Serious Sam is essentially an arena shooter. Like, now we know it as an arena shooter. Back when it came out, it was a very different thing. It's just kind of this new object. I think. It seemed like it was to me. So I had been playing, you know, playing Doom, original Doom, Doom 2, in DOS for forever. And one of the best parts about Doom 2, to me, was that you could have swarms of enemies on screen. You could just mow through them with a BFG or a plasma rifle or the chain gun or whatever. And it was fantastic. It was quite the sensation. And then, you know, we move over to 3D, and, you know, 3D hardware for a long time just wasn't powerful enough to show lots of enemies on screen, right? Like Quake has much more powerful enemies, generally speaking, because you can't have as many of them on the screen at the same time. Like, you might have 3 enemies on the screen at the same time, maybe 4, and that's about it. Because there just wasn't enough processing power to have that many 3D entities and that many polygons. And that followed through with, like, with Doom 3 because, you know, id and Carmack wanted to push the bounds of 3D technology so much. And again, you only had a couple of enemies on screen at a time, and then, you know, the bodies, of course, would dissolve when you killed them, so that they stopped taking up processing resources. So, like, when Serious Sam came out, we hadn't seen, at least I personally had not seen, a 3D first-person shooter at the time that would throw 100 enemies at you. Right? Like, it was fantastic. I gobbled it up. And the other thing that I love about Serious Sam, like, not only can you just mow down huge amounts of enemies, it's incredible, but you can do it with a friend. You can run through the full campaign in co-op, just like Doom, just like classic Doom. Which I don't think you could do in Doom 3. Like, I think you could do it in Quake? Because that was one of the ways I loved to play Doom and Doom 2, was, you know, get a modem call going and play through the campaign with friends, right? Or on a LAN. I didn't do a lot of Doom on a LAN, but, like, usually on a modem call with a friend of mine, we'd play Doom through the campaign levels, through the campaign maps, in co-op. It was fantastic. Because, you know, if you've ever opened up a Doom level in an editor, you know that you have all the enemies placed around, right? And then you've got some other enemies you don't recognize if you've played through the game in single player, and you look at them and they're like, multiplayer only. Yeah, so like, id would make the game harder if you played it co-op with a friend. And that was kind of like, that was what I really loved about Serious Sam, was playing it co-op with friends. That was a good time. Serious Sam campaign co-op. It's one of my all-time gaming, you know, fun gaming experiences. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Thank you. Udem says you can put /HUD_iStats2 in Serious Sam to get FPS. Yes. I could not remember what the FPS command is. Serious Engine shows 3 cogs locking themselves up. Yeah. Crow Team has a sense of humor. Yeah, that's the other thing, is if you play Serious Sam, if you've never played it before, Crow Team does have a sense of humor. Make sure you hunt for secrets in the maps. Just like Doom, there's tons of secrets, and some of them are quite funny. Yes. Video Clown says, I've no nostalgia for Pentium 4s. Me too, generally. I don't really have any nostalgia for it, but I do really love having this little slice of history in a Willamette. The Pentium 4. These things are just weird. They're just weird looking. It does. It looks, somebody said in the chat, it looks like they just slapped a CPU on top of another CPU, and like, that's totally what it looks like. It's even off-center. Like, what? What happened, Intel? What happened? I want to know. What happened when you made this? It looks like something went wrong. And of course, you know, looking at the performance, it looks like something went wrong. Joe says, I remember when we thought the graphics in 3D Mark 2001 were revolutionary. Indeed. Indeed. Look at all the stuff that it does. I don't even know what that means. There's tests in this app that my video card can't even run. It's so futuristic. silky pixel shader. Look at that ocean. Got that pixel shaded ocean. Yeah, so I didn't do a lot of co-op Quake. I think that would probably also be really fun. I ended up, when I was playing Quake, I was playing Quake World. Who remembers Quake World? What are all these versions of Quake, Amber? What the hell? Why are there 12 versions of Quake? So there's Quake, which is a DOS app that runs, you know, in Mode X. Mode X. It's 320 by 200, 70 hertz. You know, runs in software, runs in DOS. Can run on a 486. Would like to have a Pentium. Then you've got a very rare version I've found, as I've tried to find some information on it, on like command line settings, but you have WinQuake, which is the DOS version of Quake ported to Windows, officially, it's an official port, that supports DirectDraw. So you can do like resolution switching in Windows, and get normal resolutions out of it without having to have like a you know, VBE driver or whatever loaded in DOS, like you would for DOS Quake. Then that's also software rendered. Looks like Quake. The notable part about it is you can get high resolutions really easily in software Quake using WinQuake, without having to like futz with VBE support. And you've got GL Quake. GL Quake does what it says on the tin. It's GL. It's OpenGL accelerated version of Quake. It will even run on software OpenGL if you're very mean to it. But that's where you get your hardware acceleration for Quake. Notably, Quake single player, or Quake on a LAN, because all three of these versions of Quake use the original Quake netcode, which was meant for DOS, running over IPX, you know, Novell IPX, on a LAN in DOS with real mode drivers, right? With like terminate, stay resident, you know, network card drivers in DOS. So it's expecting a hardwired LAN connection, very low latency. That's all the netcode in these three versions of Quake. And then you've got Quake World, which was where Carmack was experimenting with internet netcode and doing like client-side prediction of what players around you were doing, client-side hit prediction, stuff like that. Like back in the day, he had a .plan server, a finger server, where you could just query it and get like, he'd talk about the latest thing he was working on, right? I remember when he was talking about writing Quake World and the netcode for Quake World and doing like client-side prediction of player movements and projectile movements and trying to figure out like client-side hit detection and how to like keep that fair in a multiplayer game. And Quake World also, of course, had GL Quake World. So you had your Quake, WinQuake, GL Quake, then Quake World, which was software rendered, and then GL Quake World, which was hardware accelerated. And you had these 5 versions of Quake. Most of my time was spent actually in software Quake World, because most of my original Quake playing was on my S3 Verge, my parents' my dad's Cyrix running an S3 Verge, so I was in software Quake World playing things like Quake Rally. If you remember Quake Rally, the original Team Fortress was a mod for Quake, for Quake World. 3-wave Capture the Flag. Remember Capture the Flag? It was a mod, it wasn't a game mode, it was a mod for Quake. But that's what I was doing with Quake, mostly. I did beat the game, ran through the single player campaign. I think I beat it once, and then like, I don't want to think about it again, and I just played, you know, Team Fortress on original Quake. And then I eventually moved over to Quake 2, which I started out doing in software rendering, but then my dad upgraded the home PC from the Cyrix with the S3 Verge to a K62, with a Voodoo Banshee. I got colored lighting in Quake 2, Quake 2 colored lighting. Good stuff. Anyway, let's look at the details here. What do we got for the 6600 GT? We're definitely getting an improvement, although not that much. Lobby, I think last time was what, 35 FPS? I think in high detail. We're only up to 41, with a GPU that's technically twice as fast. I say technically twice as fast, while staring at the fill rate number, which is 10 times the GeForce 256. Nearly 10 times the GeForce 256. But we're only seeing like 6 FPS in the high detail lobby scene, which means I think we're hitting that CPU limit pretty heavily at this point. And yes, 3D Mark absolutely can be CPU limited if your CPU is slow enough. So yeah, that is Willamette. Willamette? Hopefully, you've enjoyed this look into one of the original NetBurst CPUs. What a monster, right? What a monster. I'm gonna go ahead and say good night, because it is 7 o'clock here. We've gone for 3 hours. 3 hours! Anyway, I hope everybody's enjoyed it. I certainly have. This has been... I did not realize we'd been going for 3 hours. I'm like, this has been like an hour and a half, right? Time flies when you're having fun. And when you're checking out old NetBurst CPUs. Like I said, I'm planning on using this machine for a look at like 2001 era workstations, because it's got AGP Pro on it, and I've got a couple of Wildcat AGP Pro workstation cards, along with, of course, the FireGL that we looked at the beginning of the stream. So that'll be coming at some point. I would like to get it done by the end of the year, so that's part of why this is out right now. I wanted to make sure it works. So, thanks for coming along on the journey with me. It's been fun. It's a good time. I really enjoy running these streams. Y'all are real comfy to talk to, and show off weird hardware too. So I hope everybody's had fun, and I hope y'all have a wonderful night, and I hope the rest of your weekend is fantastic. Alright? So with that, have a wonderful night, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye. Hang on, I almost forgot. It's not quite by. I didn't run SpeedSys on this. I have not run SpeedSys, so let's do that. My bad. Let's get over to the VGA bench real quick. Here I'm like, oh yeah, no, let's finish the stream. I haven't run the SpeedSys on it yet. Not run the SpeedSys. This should be pretty easy to do though. If only my brain would remind me of these things before I say goodbye. It'd be nice, right? Like, come on. Here we go. No, 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 not 3 more hours. We're not going for 3 more hours. I got stuff to do. But we are going into DOS. You know what? Let's do, it's my fast vid. Let's see if it works. Okay, so speed sys. Oh no! I messed up my VGA running speed sys on it. That was a bad idea. Or reboot and come back in. Raz9 says thank you. I'm so sorry. I wish I had remembered before before saying goodnight to everybody. Yes, we get an encore. You get an encore. We'll run some DOS. Run some DOS on the Pentium 4. There we go. Speed sys, so you can actually read what it says. Much better. Here we go. Intel Pentium 4, 1300 megahertz. Willamette. Willamette. I still pronounce it Willamette in my head. Like it's a tiny Willem Dafoe. It's Willamette. I thought that was funny, but... Look at that memory curve. Oh, that's bad. Oh, that's so bad. You can definitely tell where the end of level 2 cache is. Wham! Well, Res9, I'm glad I ran this, because this is wild. This is a wild cache graph. This is very strange. Alright, so there we go. We've got 2.8 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. Throughput of 985 megabytes per second read-write. Level 1 cache, 8K of level 1 cache. Because, yeah, this is on the 180 nanometer process. Does not have a lot of room for cache. 256K level 2. That is wild. Oh, NetBurst. Oh, you were so flawed. You were so flawed. This is saying Pentium 3 600, approximately. That's pretty sad. That is pretty sad. Alright, so let's do a quick Quake. So we had 370 FPS in Quake? In GL Quake? Let's see what we do in DOS. A lot. 163 FPS in DOS, in Modex. Let's see if I can turn on FastVid. Maybe I'll use MTRR LFBE, because I think that's for more modern systems. See if Quake gets any benefit from at Modex. Not really. Let's try higher resolutions. It's at 640 by 480. There we go. Doing alright. This would be a nice system for running Quake at 640 by 480. But that's a little telling, right? Like we ran Quake at 640 by 480 on the Fire GL. And we got 57 FPS. And in DOS we get 73 in software rendering. Whoops. So let's see what Doom does. I can't imagine it's very good. Yeah, it's not anything special. I don't think the VGA core on the 6600 GT is terribly good. Like, it's not bad. But I don't think it's anything to write home about. Because Doom is mostly a VGA benchmark. It's not bad. So, the way you do the Doom benchmark results, so it had 2134 game ticks, right? Like, that's how it keeps track of time. And if your game ticks went by in the same number of real ticks, that's how it keeps track of wall clock time. So if you're 2134 in 2134, you're running at the game's normal frame rate, which is 35 FPS. So, proportionally, fewer real ticks means you're going faster. You're going faster than real time, if real time is 35 FPS. So it's a proportion. You just multiply this by a proportion. I don't know what that is. I'm not doing math right now. Screw that. Let's do PC Player benchmark. Oh, that's not happy. It does not like the VGA core in the 6600 GT. Ashley J. Williamson says, any thoughts or experience with BIOS Patcher? I haven't used it. I don't know what it is, but it sounds like it's a BIOS Patcher. I haven't tried it. I mean, I can't even read what the result is. I can't even read how many FPS that is. Maybe like, I don't know, 709 FPS? I don't know. It doesn't 120 FPS. Alright, so there you go. That's about it, right? I don't think we have anything else to run in here. Let's see if I can do... Because the Quake folder I've got here is not... Where's my games? Oh, this is not the same disk. Right. That's right, this is a different SD card. I have lots of games on here. I don't just have Quake and Quake 3. I have a bunch of games on this thing. So let's go into Quake. So obviously no sound, because we're in DOS. I don't have drivers for the Sound Blaster Audigy in DOS. But let's set the video options to 640 by 480. There we go. Map start. Plus M look, so turn on mouse look. Look at that. Now that's how you play Quake. High resolution software. That's not bad. That's not bad. The thing about Quake is, I'm pretty sure it doesn't really care how fast your floating point unit is, as long as it's sufficiently fast and you have a lot of memory bandwidth. I'm pretty sure. I've got some weird mouse acceleration set on this thing. My copy of Cute Mouse on this thing has got some weird acceleration values set. There you go. There's original Quake in DOS, software rendered, 640 by 480. We're over 60 FPS. Quite nicely over 60 FPS. But yeah, there we go. Have I ever played Udamasks? Have I ever played Chasm the Rift? I have not. I have not. I think that's a... That sounds familiar. Did Civi review that recently? That sounds familiar. A bunch of cool DOS games in here, but they're kind of without sound. Anyway, I think I will end that here. Y'all got another 15 minutes out of me. But there you go, Ryzen 9. You got some speed sys. That is some weird cache behavior, I will say that. That is a bizarre thing. Alright, so let's do this again. I hope everybody has a good weekend. I hope you've had fun here at the stream. I hope you've pressed the like button, pretty please, if you could, before you leave. And if you're interested in, catching future streams, please subscribe to the channel. It really does help out. I really appreciate it. So, hopefully, y'all have a wonderful night, and I will catch you in the next video. Alright? Take care. I'm gonna look down to click the thing. Later, y'all!